Last year, in January of 2024, there was an interesting lawsuit between Shopee Singapore Private Limited and a particular Mr. Lim. This lawsuit was regarding a non-competition clause which Mr. Lim had signed with Shopee as part of his employment contract. Now, in Singapore, we hear a lot about individuals having to sign a non-competition clause within their employment contracts, and a lot of times I do get questions about, hey, should I do it? Hey, what's the risk? And can they sue me? So today I thought it would be interesting for us to find out a bit more about non-competition clauses, especially within the context of Singapore. If you don't know me already, my name is Adrian Chu and I'm the CEO and founder of Career Agility International. Just as a quick recap of the case, Mr. Lim had joined TikTok from Shopee, and Shopee, upon discovery of the move, was not particularly happy about it. So what Shopee did was they initiated a lawsuit against him, citing confidentiality breaches, citing non-competition clauses which he had signed before that. After a particularly lengthy lawsuit and court trial, what the High Court decided upon was that it was not enforceable. Good news for Mr. Lim. And there were other nuances in that case which we will cover today. But the big question is, if you see a non-competition clause in your contract, should you sign it? Here are my frank and unfiltered thoughts which I want to share with you today. The topic is non-competition clauses. Do I or do I not? Now, I want to share with you the unfiltered truth about non-competition clauses. Number one, what are they? Number two, are they even legal in Singapore? And number three, what can you do about it? Once again, major disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not legally trained. Therefore, nothing that I say in this entire video constitutes legal advice. So follow me at your own risk, and my advice to you is get a lawyer if you're embroiled in the middle of a non-competition clause argument with your employers. Let's look at the case study of Shopee and Mr. Lim. In a nutshell, Mr. Lim, an employee, left Shopee to join TikTok. But unfortunately, he was bound by a non-competition clause that he had signed upon joining Shopee. And therefore, Shopee brought him to court. And Shopee claimed that the role was substantially similar. However, the employee claimed that it's not really substantially similar because the nature of the geography was different. The employee claimed that he was covering Brazil, largely only Brazil. And versus the new role he was in is basically covering UK, US, and Southeast Asia. Therefore, his argument was that there is no specific overlap over the two jobs, and therefore there was no specific confidential knowledge. To cut a long story short, as I said earlier, I'm not a lawyer. The courts dismissed Shopee's case due to lack of legitimate proprietary interest and the reasonableness of the geographical restraint. I've put a link in the description where there was a very good write-up by Denton's Rodup, and you might want to read it if you are keen on doing more research into that space. First question of the day. What is a non-competition clause? A non-competition clause is actually a restraint of trade covenant which the employer puts into your employment contract, which states that for a certain amount of time after you've left the company, you're not allowed to join a competitor. Now, is it legitimate? It actually is, okay? And however, there are a lot of nuances involved in the wording of it itself. These clauses are usually inserted into the employment contract, but sometimes they can be a bit sneaky. Power tip here. It can be sneaked into the employee handbook, which is not something that you have signed on the employment contract. However, there may be a clause in the employment contract which says that I agree to abide by everything in the employee handbook. Okay, so you got to be watchful over whether or not the thing that you're signing actually encompasses another document. Now, a non-competition clause usually encompasses the scope of activity, which means that if you're in sales, you're not supposed to be doing sales for another company. Or if you know the secret recipe for Coca-Cola, for instance, the formulation, you cannot join Pepsi, okay, because there is a transferability of trade secrets. There's also a matter of duration. For a number of months, you're not allowed to work for a competitor. Now, this is designed such that your knowledge or the trade secrets that you have are meant to expire. So it's not unreasonable to have a duration baked in. And the third element to it is basically your geography, which means that if I'm covering Singapore, I can restrain you from covering the same job, the same role in Singapore as well. Okay, so a typical non-competition clause has these three elements to it: the scope of activity, the geography, as well as the duration. It could also be stacked with other clauses that restrain your behaviors after you leave the company. One could be a non-disparagement clause. After you leave the company, you're not allowed to speak bad of it. There's non-solicitation of clients or employees, which means that if you leave the company, you cannot go to your clients, your former clients, and pull them over. Or you cannot talk to your current or previous colleagues and pull them over to the new company as well. So sometimes it may be stacked. So do be mindful about it. So that is what a non-competition clause usually is. Why do employers use them? It's a genuine protection of trade secrets, client list, intellectual property move. Okay, if I decide that I have built a certain customer base and I've had a proprietary way of helping them to achieve their results and everything through a trade secret, I can't have my employees running off and starting off their own shop or joining my competitor and spilling all my secrets to them, right? So therefore, it is legitimate for non-competition clauses to be baked in. However, sometimes, or even though it is a legitimate clause that companies have a right to put in fact, not sometimes, many times, it is used as a bully tactic to prevent defections. Okay, for instance, if you leave me to join a competitor, I'm going to hit you with a lawsuit. Now, the question I always get is this: can your employer sue you? The answer is yes. The employer can sue you. Your employer can sue you for anything, whether or not you have taken name cards out and therefore you're in breach of confidentiality. A nasty employer can sue you for anything if you leave. And they could be as petty as just to sue you just to scare the other people into not leaving the company, or they could be as petty as suing you just to make your life miserable. Even though they know they can't win at court, they just want to make you spend money on your lawyers. And by the way, lawyers are not cheap. So the question is, can they sue you? The answer is yes, they can. The other question we get is this: can they even sue you for non-competition clause if you got retrenched or if you got fired without cause? Once again, the answer is yes, they can sue you. Okay, they can bring you to court. Whether they'll win is another different story altogether. Therefore, if you are seeing non-competition clause in your contract, you got to be very mindful and very careful. As always, speak to a lawyer about it. As I said, disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer. Now, if you see a non-competition clause in your contract, what do you look out for? Well, there are a couple of red flags you need to be mindful of. Number one is an unreasonably long period of time. For instance, if they're saying that you cannot join a competitor for within the next 24 months or the next 5 years, that's a bit ridiculous. Okay, that is something the courts will not view very favorably upon, because ultimately the courts will look at the reasonableness. Why can't I pronounce the word properly? The reasonableness test, whether or not it's reasonable. It's not reasonable to tell somebody you can't get a job with a competitor like forever, right? Or even more than 12 months. So if you see a non-competition clause that's more than 6 months or more than 12 months, it's a bit of a red flag. The other thing you want to look for as well is the geography is broad. For instance, if you get a clause in the contract says that you cannot join a company that is anywhere else in the world. That's ridiculous, right? I'm only covering Singapore and I can't even move to UK to get the job done. So that's a bit unreasonable. Sometimes also, if you see a very vague definition of competitors, it's a bit ridiculous. I've seen clauses which actually read that you're not allowed to join direct or indirect competitors to our company. What do you mean by indirect competitors? So if I'm selling flowers, someone who sells bicycles, it's ridiculous. So if it's couched too broadly, be very mindful about it. Once again, if the clauses are stacked together with the non-solicitation, non-disparagement, and everything else. Just be mindful about how much onus is upon you if you leave the company. Okay, and of course, one big red flag to watch out for is this. Okay, and this is the biggest warning I want to share with you today. If the company has a history of suing people for even the most frivolous of things, and there are a few companies out there who actually do that because they are bullies, be mindful about it because it's something that is tricky and they're more likely to sue you if you leave. So if you hear about or if you see a company that has a bad habit of suing people, my advice is don't even join them. Okay, it's messy, it's potentially dangerous, and you're opening up yourself to a lot of trouble down the road. So those are the red flags to watch out for. Next question, is a non-competition clause enforceable in Singapore? Well, as I said earlier, the courts will always lean towards whether or not it's reasonable. As a matter of public policy, in general, a restraint of trade is not enforceable. I mean, to be fair, you want to stop someone from earning a living, the courts will say, no, show me cases. In fact, there are ways of tightening a clause such that the company can tighten and really enforce it. But I'm not going to share it out now because I do not want companies to figure out these tips and tricks on how to prosecute employees who leave. So I'm not going to talk about that, but you just got to be mindful that in general, non-competition clauses are hard to enforce, but if a company can show cause, they can win. Okay. One thing, however, in general is this. If you are in a junior role, usually the courts will just strike it out. For instance, I had a case where I'm the chairman of my condominium MC, and we had a change of guards, a change of security company. And we liked one of the guards very much, and we asked him to leave and join this new company that we are engaging. He said, no, they will sue me. And I said, no, they won't. They won't sue you because you're too, how much trade secret can a junior individual have, right? So if you're in a very junior level role and the company is threatening to sue you, chances are it's not enforceable. But once again, as I said, please go look up a lawyer. And if you cannot afford a lawyer, give MOM a call, give TAFEP a call. Or there are a lot of other community legal services that are free. Just go Google free legal services and see whether or not you can make an appointment and just have a conversation with them. So non-competition clauses, they are generally not very enforceable unless they are very specific. So what can we do before you sign a non-competition clause? So if you sit down at the offer letter stage and you're reading the offer and you see a non-competition clause in there, do you sign it? Underlying principle is this. If you have a bad feeling about it, or if your gut is telling you don't go for it, don't go for it. Seriously, don't go for it, okay? If you're not comfortable signing it, don't sign it. But if you are really enamored by the company and the offer is just so damn good that you want to just join them, then here are some things that you can do. Number one, clarify. What is the definition of a competing company, for instance? Ask them, can you tell me what exactly is a competing company? What exactly does this term mean? You clarify in terms of geography or whatever it is. Just make sure that you clarify and you ask them, what do you mean by this? Number two, you can negotiate. Okay, ask them to remove it. Ask them to reduce it. For instance, if it's a 12-month, can I reduce it to a 6-month? If it's a 6-month, can I reduce it to a 3-month? Or maybe you can reword it, limit the scope a little bit more, exclude certain roles, or even if you want to invest in another company as an investor, sometimes some non-competition clauses will stop you from that even. Maybe you can just negotiate to have it removed. Okay, but whatever it is, keep email records because it's not going to be a he says, she says situation. So keep email records. And once again, if you are stuck or you're confused, please don't be cheapskate. Get a lawyer to review it. And get his advice because they know best. I think one of the most powerful things you can do if you are faced with a non-competition clause and if you really want to join a company, and if they say no, you cannot rewrite it or remove it, you got to ask them point blank. In the past 5 years, have there been any employees who have been issued letters of warning or had legal action taken against them for non-competition? Just ask. It's not a hard and fast rule where if they never did it before, they'll do it to you, or if they've done it before, they're going to do it to you. Okay, but it shows a pattern and an approach. Because I can tell you that if a company has been suing people left, right, and center over the past few years, chances are you're going to get hit. Avoid those companies. So if it makes you uncomfortable, don't sign it. In fact, if any part of your contract makes you uncomfortable, have it removed, don't sign it. One of the companies I joined previously, after I written my book, The Career Crossroads, part of the employment contract stated that any and all of the IP which I have previously held is automatically transferred to this new company. And I said, like hell it is. I'm not going to give you my IP. It's ridiculous. Had I not read the fine print, I would have surrendered everything that I've created to the company. And I said, no, have it removed. And you know what? Removed it. So sometimes it's just as easy as just pushing back and saying you remove it. And if your position is that you're strong and they really want you to join, you say you remove it or I don't join. Okay? Play hardball if you have to, walk away if you have to, but watch out for non-competition clauses. If you've already signed an employment contract and there is a non-competition clause in there and you're thinking of resigning, once again, don't panic, it may not be enforceable for the various reasons I shared with you earlier. But once again, if you're feeling nervous about it, talk to a lawyer. Okay? I'm not a lawyer. Talk to a lawyer. And I cannot stress this enough because you could be in a whole world of pain if you're not careful, especially if you're living on acrimonious terms with your current employer. Okay? There are a lot of things that you should not do when you resign. And maybe that's another topic for another episode. But always make sure that you get legal advice. Okay? And if the bosses say, okay, fine, you're being retrenched, I'll make an exception. Get it in writing from them. Get an email. Get the waiver in writing saying that, it's okay. Because as the lawyers call it, for the avoidance of doubt. Okay? Just get it right in writing and make sure that you're covered. But if you really want to leave and you are afraid they might sue you, okay, maybe you can choose an adjacent role. For instance, if you're doing sales, maybe you do marketing. Okay, it's not so direct. If you're the person who's doing the formulation for Coca-Cola, okay, example, and you know the recipe, and if you want to join Pepsi, then what you do is maybe join Pepsi in a non-formulation role, nothing to do with formulation at all. It could be a marketing, it could be the guy who QC controls the drinks that come out of the can. I have no idea what it is, but if there's no overlap, okay, and there's no signs that there's any leakage of confidential information or trade secrets, you may have a stronger case. So consider adjacent roles, consider adjacent industries, just to cover your ground. So final tips for this very touchy topic about non-competition clauses. Number one, read the fine print. And I mean it, read the fine print. How many of us just sign off, okay? Your employment contract is not like your EULA on your when you go to the website and you click agree or don't agree, just click agree, okay? No, employment contracts are tricky. You have to focus on all the small prints. If you see something you don't like or makes you nervous, please look into it carefully, clarify, and negotiate. And of course, ask whether the company has a history of being nasty. And of course, once again, if anything makes you uncomfortable, put down the document, walk away. You will thank yourself later for it. Okay? Remember, get legal advice. So, in conclusion, I would like to share with you that such clauses are almost commonplace. In the US, the Federal Trade Commission, I think so, FTC, has proposed that all restraint of trade clauses be banned. Okay? And that would be amazing if it happens. In Singapore, the TAFEP and the various authorities, they are coming up with guidelines. Now, I don't think they're going to outright ban a non-competition clause, but I believe that it's going to be more targeted and more reasonable. If you ask me, the employee part of me says ban everything, don't have those clauses. But the businessman part of me says that no, there must be some guardrails to prevent leakage of confidential information. So I see where the need for a non-competition clause to come in, but I also see the unreasonableness of restraining somebody's livelihood. So once again, as I said, if you are facing a situation like this, go talk to a lawyer. If you are facing any other situation, come talk to us. My name is Adrian, and I'm easily reachable at info@careeragility.org. In the meantime, have a good one. Keep calm and career on. Oh yes, for those of you who have been listening to me faithfully throughout all the previous episodes, as well as for this particular episode, we have prepared a cheat sheet on non-competition clauses just for you. It's a very useful, handy-dandy document which you can read through and keep on hand for future reference. You can have access to it if you drop me an email, info@careeragility.org, and we will send it to you. Drop us your information or any career questions that you might have. So don't forget to pick up your complimentary copy of the non-competition clause cheat sheet, and I hope to see you again soon. Have a great one, guys. Take care. Bye.